My fiancée asked to test her coworker 2 months before our wedding, so I canceled everything. And 8 months later, she came back. My fiancée wanted a hall pass to test drive another man before marrying me. I gave her something better, a permanent vacation from our relationship. And the real twist was that the guy she wanted to explore already had a fiancé of his own. My name is Nate. I'm 29 years old, and I work in aviation safety certification and flight software compliance. In plain English, that means I help make sure the systems that keep planes from falling out of the sky actually meet federal standards before anyone trusts them with human lives. I spend half my life in hangars, airport offices, regional terminals, and conference rooms across the Midwest. The other half is usually spent driving along I-70 or sitting inside MCI, waiting for another delayed flight while drinking bad airport coffee and answering emails from clients who think compliance is optional. The job pays well, and I'm good at it. It also means I travel a lot. For 14 months, I was engaged to a woman named Katya. We had been together for almost 3 years total. She was originally from Ukraine, came to the United States for grad school, and stayed here afterward. I met her at a friend's birthday party at a rooftop bar in the Crossroads district in Kansas City. She was stunning, not just pretty, stunning in the kind of way that makes you lose your place mid-sentence. Dark hair, sharp features, perfect posture, and an outfit that looked like she had stepped out of some European fashion magazine. At the time, I thought she was way out of my league, but she seemed genuinely interested in me. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours. We talked about her transition to American life, my job that nobody ever understands on the first explanation, and the best barbecue places in Kansas City. She had this way of giving a person her full attention, like the entire room had disappeared and nothing else mattered except the conversation in front of her. I was hooked almost immediately. The first year with her was incredible. Katia introduced me to her world, which meant elaborate dinner parties with friends who dressed up for everything and served homemade food that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I introduced her to Chiefs games, hole-in-the-wall barbecue joints, and places where napkins came from a metal dispenser and the best item on the menu was written on a chalkboard. She pretended to enjoy those places more than she probably did, but I appreciated the effort. We balanced each other out, or at least I thought we did. Looking back, I was probably more accommodating than I should have been. Katya had strong opinions about everything: where we ate, what we did on weekends, which events were worth attending, what I wore when we went out, whether my shoes were too casual, whether a place had the right atmosphere, whether certain friends of mine were a little too much. Most of the time, I went along with what she wanted because it seemed easier. And honestly, I wanted her to be happy. My best friend Cody called me, whipped more than once. I told him he was just jealous. He told me I was just blind. To be fair, I wasn't a complete pushover. When Katya wanted me to skip my cousin's wedding because one of her coworkers was having a gallery opening on the same night, I told her no. When she suggested I should find a job that required less travel because she did not like being alone, I told her my career was not negotiable. So I did have a backbone. I just didn't use it as often as I should have. The engagement happened 14 months before everything fell apart. I proposed at her favorite restaurant on the plaza. I had planned it for weeks, coordinated with the staff, and carried the ring in my jacket pocket throughout the entire dinner. I was terrified she would somehow notice the box. The ring was my grandmother's. It was a vintage piece with a center diamond and two smaller sapphires. I had the ring reset into a more modern band because Katya had very specific taste, and I already knew my grandmother's original setting would not be elegant enough for her. When I got down on one knee, Katia actually teared up. She said yes before I even finished asking the question. Then she posted the photo on Instagram within 30 seconds. The picture got 400 likes in an hour. Before we had even gotten the check, she had changed her profile bio to Future Mrs. Her parents flew in from Chicago the next month to celebrate. Her mother, Irina, brought traditional Ukrainian pastries she had spent 2 days making. Her father, Victor, brought a handshake that felt like an evaluation. Victor was an old-school Eastern European kind of man. When he shook my hand, it felt like he was testing my grip strength, my character, and possibly my future earning potential all at once. Irina was warmer, but she clearly had high standards for whoever was marrying her daughter. Apparently, I passed inspection. At one point, Victor pulled me aside and told me he was glad Katia had found someone stable, someone who would take care of her. I took that responsibility seriously, maybe too seriously. Katia and I found an apartment together in a nice building near the plaza. We split rent 60/40 because I made more money. Then we started planning the wedding for early June. Her parents offered to contribute toward the costs, which was generous, especially considering the budget kept creeping upward. Katya had a vision, and once Katya had a vision, the world was expected to rearrange itself around that vision. The venue had to be perfect. The flowers had to be specific. The photographer had to have a certain style. The guest list kept expanding, because she could not possibly exclude anyone from her social circle without causing some kind of emotional or social incident. By the time everything was locked in, we were looking at 140 guests, a venue in Parkville with a river view, a six-piece band, and a photographer who had shot weddings for Kansas City Chiefs players. The total wedding budget had ballooned to $62,000. Her parents were contributing $20,000. I was covering the rest. Every vendor had deposits down. Save the dates were sitting on refrigerators across 3 states. Her dress was being altered. My suit was ordered. The wedding website was live. The registry was filled with carefully selected kitchen items, fancy linens, and things I had never heard of before, but apparently needed to own as a married man. I went along with all of it. I wrote checks. I nodded at fabric samples. I pretended to care about the difference between ivory and eggshell. I convinced myself this was just what people did when they were building a life together. You compromise. What I did not realize was that I was the only one compromising. 2 months before the wedding, everything was basically set. The venue was booked, the caterer was confirmed, the photographer was scheduled, the save the dates had already gone out, the countdown had started. Then Tuesday happened. I had just gotten back from a 3-day trip to Wichita, where I had been certifying avionics upgrades for a regional carrier. It had been long days in a stuffy hangar, reviewing documentation, running tests, and dealing with mechanics who acted like compliance was a suggestion rather than the thing keeping their operation from getting buried in violations. I was exhausted, but it was a good kind of exhausted, the kind that comes from doing your job well. When I walked into our apartment, Katya was sitting at the kitchen table. She had this look on her face I had never seen before. Serious, but not spontaneous. Almost rehearsed. She told me she needed to talk to me about something important. About us. About the wedding. I sat down across from her, still in my work clothes, assuming this was going to be about seating arrangements, vendor drama, or some last-minute crisis involving flowers. Then she said, "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About commitment. About being sure." That got my attention. I asked her what she meant. She took a breath and said she thought we should take a break before the wedding. I asked what kind of break she was talking about. That was when she told me about Dmitri. Dmitri was a guy from her office, some project manager she had been working closely with on a big campaign. She said they had developed a connection, an emotional connection. She said that before she walked down the aisle, she thought she needed to explore those feelings so she could be completely sure she was making the right choice. I just sat there, processing the sentence. My fiancé, 2 months before our wedding, was asking me for permission to pursue another man. Not a stranger. Not some old crush she had randomly reconnected with online. A coworker, someone she saw every single day while I was traveling for work. I asked her how long this had been going on. She got defensive immediately. She said nothing had happened. They had only been talking. They had gotten close. That was all. She said he understood her in ways that were different from how I understood her. She said he was there when I was always gone. That last part landed exactly where she wanted it to land. Like somehow, I was responsible for her developing feelings for another man because my job required travel. I asked, "So what exactly am I supposed to do during this exploration period?" She looked at me like the answer should have been obvious. "Wait for me," she said. "Give me space to figure out my feelings." She said it like she was asking me to pick up milk on the way home. Then came the line that told me she had rehearsed the entire conversation. "If you really love me, you'd want me to be certain. You'd want me to come into our marriage without any doubts." She had her talking points ready. She had probably gotten advice from some friend who told her this was mature and honest and emotionally evolved. She had clearly decided this was a reasonable request. But here is where she miscalculated. She assumed I would react the way I usually did. She expected me to accommodate, to compromise, to put her feelings first, to tell her I understood, to agree to wait patiently in the background while she decided whether a coworker was a better option than the man she was supposed to marry. Instead, I stood up. "No." She blinked. I said, "No break. No exploration. No waiting around while you figure out if some other guy is a better option. We're either getting married or we're not. And if you need to explore feelings for a coworker, then we're not." Her face changed instantly. That calm, rehearsed mask she had been holding up just cracked. "I'm not asking to break up, Nate. I'm asking for space. Time to process. Don't you understand the difference?" "I understand perfectly," I said. "You want to keep me on the hook while you test drive someone else. That's not space. That's treating me like a backup plan. I looked her dead in the eyes, and I don't do backup plans. That was when she got emotional. She said I was being unreasonable. She said she was trying to be honest with me instead of just cheating behind my back. She said most men would appreciate that kind of transparency. I told her most men would have walked out 30 seconds into this conversation. I was just slower to catch up. Then I asked for the ring back. Her entire attitude changed. The tears stopped. Her eyes went cold. You're serious right now? I've never been more serious about anything. It was a gift, Nate. You can't just demand it back because you're upset. The engagement is over, I said. That means the ring comes back. That's how this works. We went back and forth for another 10 minutes. She tried guilt first, then anger, then bargaining, then another round of tears. I did not move. Finally, she pulled the ring off and threw it at my chest. I caught it cleanly, right out of the air. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Before she left, she turned around with her eyes blazing. You will never find someone as beautiful as me. No one is going to love you the way I did. You are making the biggest mistake of your life. Then she slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I stood there alone in our apartment, holding my grandmother's ring. And the strangest thing was that I did not feel sad. I felt relieved. It felt like I had been waiting for the other shoe to drop for months, and it finally had. Then I texted Cody. His response came back in under a minute. Finally, bro. Took you long enough to grow a pair. Want hot wings? I'm on my way. Cody showed up 45 minutes later with a bag of wings from our usual spot, a notebook, and a grin on his face like Christmas had arrived early. He had never liked Katya. He said she treated me like an accessory. He said she seemed more interested in having a fiancé than in having me specifically. I had always defended her. I told him he didn't understand her. I told him he was being unfair. It turned out he understood her better than I did. He dropped the wings on the table, cracked open an energy drink, and pointed at me. Walk me through everything, start to finish. Don't leave anything out. So I did. I told him the whole conversation. He listened without interrupting, which was rare for Cody. When I finished, he just shook his head. Honestly, I'm surprised it took this long, he said. A woman who posts your engagement ring before she even calls her mom isn't in love with you, bro. She's in love with the announcement. He had a point. Then he pulled out the notebook and uncapped a pen. We're approaching this like a project. Deliverables, timelines, dependencies. I stared at him. You're serious right now? Dead serious. Most guys fumble breakups because they react emotionally instead of strategically. We're making sure you don't fumble the bag. Wait, what? Shut up and listen, Nate. Within 20 minutes, Cody had mapped out everything I needed to handle. The apartment lease, the wedding vendors, the joint accounts, the shared subscriptions, the narrative control. He even assigned priorities. High impact, low effort items first. The subscriptions. I had not even thought about that. Katya and I had combined basically everything over the past 2 years. Streaming services, grocery delivery, cloud storage, music, fitness apps, meal planning services, all under my accounts, all connected to my payment information. She used them constantly. Her entire digital life ran on infrastructure I was paying for. Cody circled that part of his list 3 times. This right here, he said, tapping the page, is the petty satisfaction column. Not necessary for the breakup, but important for morale. He grinned. My morale, specifically. I told him I did not want to be petty. It's not petty, he said. It's practical. Why should you pay for services for someone who just asked to explore another guy? Then he leaned back. Besides, watching her get logged out of everything one by one is going to be special. He had a point there too. But first, I had a more important message to send. I knew Katya. I knew how she operated. The second she calmed down, she would start working on the narrative. Calling friends, texting family, framing this as me overreacting to a reasonable request. By morning, I would be the villain who abandoned her over a simple conversation about feelings. I needed to get ahead of that. So I typed one text message. I kept it short, factual, and completely unemotional. Katya asked me tonight to take a break from our engagement so she could explore her feelings for a coworker named Dmitry. I declined and ended the engagement. The wedding is canceled. I wanted you to hear this from me directly. I sent it to her parents, her sister, and 3 of our mutual friends who I knew would spread it further. Then I turned off my phone and finished my wings. Cody called it the narrative lock. He said that in any breakup, whoever controls the story controls the outcome. I had just made it impossible for Katya to rewrite what happened, without looking like she was lying after her own family had already received the facts from me directly. By the next morning, that text had done its job. Her sister had screenshotted it to their family group chat. 2 of our mutual friends had already told their entire friend circles. One guy I had sent it to worked with Katia at her agency, and by lunch, her whole office knew, not from vague gossip, from the actual facts I had sent before she could spin anything. She tried anyway. She told people I had overreacted to a simple conversation about pre-wedding nerves. But when people asked follow-up questions, her story fell apart. The details did not match. The timeline did not work. And everyone had already seen my text with Dimitri's name in it. Next, I called Victor, her father. I had always respected him, and I figured he deserved a real conversation, not just a text. He answered on the second ring. His voice was heavy. He had clearly already read my message. Is it true, Nate? What you wrote? Every word, Victor. He went quiet for a long moment. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Then he asked what I needed from him regarding the wedding costs. I told him I would handle canceling everything, and we could split whatever deposits were non-refundable. He had contributed around $20,000 toward the venue, catering, and other vendors. I offered to cover the losses myself since I was the one ending it. No. His voice was firm. My daughter made this mess. I'm not letting you pay for her mistakes. In my family, when someone breaks their word, they bear the consequences, not the person who was wronged. Then he said something that stayed with me. He said he had raised Katia to know better than this. He said he had tried to teach her that trust was something you build, not something you throw away for excitement. He said he did not know where he had gone wrong, but he was ashamed of what she had done. I told him it was not his fault. People make their own choices. That's generous of you, he said. More than she deserves. I could hear Irina in the background, upset, asking what was happening. Victor told her they would talk after he finished with me. Before he hung up, his voice softened. I hoped you would be part of this family, Nate. You're a good man. My daughter is a fool. That hit harder than I expected. Coming from an old-school Ukrainian father who was not easy to impress, it meant something. On Wednesday morning, I started making calls. The venue coordinator was understanding, but firm about the cancellation policy. Between their deposit and the caterer, we were going to lose around $8,000. Victor handled that call himself and insisted on it. The photographer refunded most of my deposit because she was able to rebook the date quickly. She said she was sorry things had not worked out, but she had seen enough weddings and canceled weddings to know that calling it off now probably saved everyone more pain later. The florist kept $1,500. The DJ kept $500. The band was the biggest hit after the venue. $3,000. Non-refundable. No exception. I called the rental company for the tables and chairs. I called the bakery. I called the calligrapher who had done the invitations. I called the hotel where we had blocked rooms for out-of-town guests. By noon, I had made 14 calls and watched about $13,000 vanish into smoke for a wedding that was never going to happen. By Wednesday afternoon, the wedding website was gone. I had built it on a platform under my email, so I logged in and deleted the whole thing. The registry disappeared with it. All those carefully selected kitchen items, expensive towels, fancy linens, and curated little signs of our future life together were gone. The public proof of our upcoming marriage had been erased. Cody had suggested that part specifically. He said that for someone like Katia, the public-facing things would hurt more than anything private. Her whole identity was wrapped up in how things looked to other people. Remove the optics, he said. Remove her power. He was not wrong. She started blowing up my phone around 4 that afternoon. Texts, calls, voicemails. Apparently, she had gone to show a friend the registry and found nothing. Then she checked the wedding website and found nothing. Then she called the venue and found out her own father had canceled everything. Her messages got increasingly frantic, then angry, then threatening. She said I was trying to humiliate her. She said I had gone behind her back to her own family. She said I was being vindictive and cruel. I did not respond to any of it. That evening, I logged into all our shared accounts. Streaming services first. I changed the password on the main account, removed her profile, and moved to the next platform. Same process. Cloud storage, grocery delivery, music, fitness app, meal planning service, language learning app she had used exactly twice. Everything. Cody sat across from me watching with a grin on his face. He had brought snacks. He looked like that Michael Jackson popcorn gif in human form. This is better than any show we could have watched on those streaming services, he said, stuffing chips into his mouth. I knew it was petty, but Cody was right. Why should I keep paying for someone who had just tried to put me on a shelf while she shopped around? The texts that came after that were something else. Apparently, she had been in the middle of a show when the account logged her out. Then she tried to order groceries, and the payment failed. Then she could not access the playlist she had been curating for months. Then she tried to open the cloud storage, where she kept design files for work and got a password error. The messages went through several stages. Confusion first, then realization, then anger. She even sent me voicemails. Her accent was slipping hard. You cancel everything? Everything? I am in middle of show, Nate. You are so petty. So childish. I cannot believe I waste 3 years on you. You think this hurts me? This is nothing. You are nothing. Mudak. Cody nearly died laughing when he heard it. Bro, he said, wiping his eyes. She's having an existential crisis. She tried to sign up for her own accounts, but apparently some of the premium features I had been paying for were not available on the basic plans. Then she sent another round of messages asking if I was seriously going to make her pay full price for services she had been using for free for 2 years. I did not respond to those either. That's the best part, Cody said. The silence. I slept better that night than I had in months. The apartment situation was the big one. We were both on the lease, and the lease ran through October. Breaking it early meant penalties, and I had no interest in months of awkward cohabitation while she figured out her next move. I also did not want to give her daily access to my life while she was angry enough to make it difficult. After the subscription shut down, she decided to fight back. First, she called my company's HR department and claimed I had been harassing her. She said she felt unsafe and demanded they do something about it. Except there was nothing for them to do anything about. I had not contacted her directly since the breakup conversation, except for factual logistics. Every message she had sent me had gone unanswered. The text I sent to her family contained no threats, no insults, and no exaggerations. HR called me. I forwarded them the relevant screenshots showing she was the one sending aggressive messages, and they closed the case in about 20 minutes. Then she tried calling the apartment management office to get me removed from the lease for creating a hostile living environment. Except I was not even living there at that point. I was staying with Cody temporarily while I figured out the move. And the building manager, who had clearly seen enough breakup drama to write a book about it, was not interested in getting involved beyond the paperwork. Katya also tried to get ahead of me with the wedding vendors. She called the venue pretending to be the one handling the cancellation and tried to redirect my deposit refunds to her account. The venue coordinator called me to verify. When I explained the situation, she flagged Katya's number in their system. The caterer got a similar call with the same result. Her attempts to get back at me were not working because there was nothing to get back at. I was not attacking her. I was not engaging with her. I was simply removing myself, closing accounts, canceling obligations, and refusing to be baited. She had no idea how to fight that. On Thursday morning, I went to the leasing office and explained the situation. The manager was sympathetic. She said that if one of us wanted to take over the lease solo, that could work. If we both wanted out, there would be a 2-month penalty. I asked about my options specifically. She said that if I could find a replacement tenant and Katia agreed to sign off on the lease change, I could be out within 30 days. So I made some calls. A guy from my company had been looking for a place closer to downtown. I told him about the apartment, sent him pictures, and quoted him the rent. By Thursday afternoon, he wanted it. He said he could move in by the 15th if the paperwork worked out. Now I just needed Katia to cooperate. I texted her a simple proposal. I would move out. She could stay in the apartment through the end of the lease if she wanted, or sign off so the replacement tenant could take my place. I would cover my share of any penalty required to break things cleanly. Clean break. No drama. Everyone moves on. She called me instead of texting back. Her voice was different now. Calmer. I don't want you to move out, Nate. I want to talk about this. Really talk. There was a pause. I was hasty. Dimitri isn't what I thought. I made a mistake raising it the way I did. That's not changing anything, I said. You can either agree to the lease terms, or we're both stuck in an awkward situation until October. She went quiet. Then she asked where I was planning to go. Austin. Another silence. I continued. My company has had a position open there for months. Regional manager for the Southwest Territory. More money, better weather, fresh start. I already talked to my boss. The job is mine if I want it. The silence on the other end changed. I think she had assumed I would stay close. That I would still be orbiting the same city, the same friends, the same old life. Finding out I was leaving the state entirely was not part of her plan. She agreed to sign the lease paperwork the next day. On Friday morning, we met at the leasing office. She looked like she had been crying, although I could tell some of it was performance. We sat across from each other signing documents and barely made eye contact. Before she left, she tried one more time. Can we just slow down? Maybe you're making this bigger than it needs to be. She looked at me with those eyes that used to work on me. I never actually did anything with Dimitri. It was just feelings. Feelings I could work through. The fact that you could even ask for what you asked tells me everything I need to know, I said. She stared at me. Someone who wants to marry me does not need to explore other options first. That is not how this works. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Something in my voice must have made it clear there was no angle left to play. She walked out without another word. On Saturday morning, Cody showed up with his truck. We spent 8 hours packing and loading everything I was taking with me. The apartment had been mostly furnished when we moved in, so there was not much to fight over. My clothes, my gaming setup, my personal things, some kitchen equipment I had bought myself. Everything else stayed. By Saturday evening, my half of the apartment was empty. I left the keys on the counter with a note that said nothing more than, "Good luck." Cody thought that was too nice. He had wanted me to leave a printed screenshot of her asking for the break, but I was done. I did not need the last word. I just needed to be gone. On Sunday morning, I was on I-35 heading south toward Austin. 12 hours of empty highway, gas station, coffee, and podcast episodes about aviation history. I passed through Oklahoma City around lunch. I stopped for gas near Dallas around dinner. By then, Texas plates had started outnumbering everything else. I crossed into Austin city limits just after 9 p.m. The skyline was lit up against the dark. New city, new job, new life. I did not look back once. The first few weeks in Austin were a blur of logistics. Finding an apartment, setting up utilities, learning the new office, getting oriented with a new territory. My region covered Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of Colorado. That meant a lot of regional carriers, a lot of small airports, a lot of The Austin office was different from what I was used to. More relaxed, more collaborative, less obsessed with corporate theater. My boss, Paul, was a former Air Force guy who cared more about results than appearances. He did not care how many hours I sat at my desk or how many pointless meetings I attended. He cared about whether operators passed certification, whether clients were happy, and whether the work was clean. I spent the first month in the air and in hangars more than I spent at my desk. El Paso 1 week for a comprehensive documentation review. Phoenix the next week for software certification testing. Then a drive out to a tiny airport in the hill country where a charter company needed compliance consulting because their previous specialist had botched something and they were facing fines. Every successful certification felt like a win. Every new client felt like proof that I had made the right call. The work itself had not changed all that much, but my head was in a better place. I was not just clocking in anymore, I was actually invested again. And the work kept me busy, which was exactly what I needed. Cody kept me updated on the Kansas City situation. He still had connections with mutual friends who were more than happy to share information. And from what he told me, it was a mess. Katya tried to spin the story for about 48 hours before giving up. My text to her family had made that almost impossible. Her own father was telling people she had asked for a break to pursue a coworker. Her sister was telling people she could not believe Katya had thrown away what she had. The story was out, and it was not flattering. Apparently, after I left, Katya doubled down on Dmitry. I guess she figured that if she had lost me over him, she might as well see what was actually there. They started dating officially about 2 weeks after I moved. Cody sent me updates like a sportscaster. Week 1, they were inseparable. Eating lunch together at the office every day. Week 3, she was posting couple pictures with captions about finding her person. Week 5, she introduced him to friends as her boyfriend. It was moving fast, but that made sense. She needed to prove the whole thing had been worth it. Then week 8 happened. Dmitry had a fiancée. Not an ex-fiancée. A current fiancée. A woman in Chicago who he had been engaged to for over a year. Katya was the side piece. That emotional connection she thought was so deep. The late nights at the office. The conversations where he understood her in some special way. The attention that seemed different from what she had with me. All of it was just entertainment for a man who was bored with his actual relationship and saw an easy target. She found out when Dmitry's fiancé found her Instagram. Apparently, Katya had posted a photo with location data that did not match Dmitry's supposed work trip. His fiancé did some digging, found Katya's profile, connected the dots, and discovered an entire relationship her future husband had been hiding. The confrontation happened publicly, comments on Katya's photos calling her out, messages to mutual friends explaining the situation, screenshots shared across multiple platforms. The fiancé had receipts, text messages between Dmitry and Katya, a restaurant reservation he had made under a fake name, hotel charges on a credit card statement. She posted everything. Everyone in Katya's social circle found out at the same time that she had left her fiancé for a man who had been playing her the entire time. And to make it worse, Dmitry did not even try to defend her. When confronted, he threw Katya under the bus completely. He told his fiancée that Katya had pursued him aggressively and he had just been too nice to shut it down. He said she had misread professional friendliness as romantic interest. He basically made Katya look desperate and delusional. His fiancée did not buy it entirely, but she wanted to believe enough of it to stay. They went to couples counseling. Within a month, they were posting photos together again. Dmitry kept his relationship. He kept his reputation. He kept his comfortable life. Katya got nothing except public humiliation and the discovery that she had been someone else's side piece. Cody called me the night it all went down, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. He said he had never seen karma work that fast. I did not feel happy exactly. It was more like satisfaction. Not because I wanted her destroyed, but because the choice I had made was now confirmed. I had not overreacted. I had not been cruel. I had not thrown away a good relationship over nothing. I had seen the truth early enough to get out. After that, Katia went quiet on social media. No more posts. No more stories. No more carefully filtered photos of her perfect life. The image she had spent years building was basically toast, and everyone knew it. Her agency let her go 3 weeks later. Officially, it was a restructuring. Unofficially, one of her coworkers told Cody that clients had started asking to work with different designers. Nobody wanted their brand connected to the woman, whose messy personal life had just exploded across Instagram. In the creative industry, reputation is everything. Hers was gone. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I hit my sales targets for the first quarter. I got positive feedback from 3 different clients about my certification work. I started building a real routine in Austin. Gym in the morning, work during the day, exploring the city on weekends. I found a great apartment near downtown with a view of Lady Bird Lake. I started hiking the trails on weekends. I joined a recreational volleyball league through work. I made friends with some guys from the office who were also transplants from other cities. For the first time in years, I felt like I was actually living my own life, not adjusting everything around what someone else wanted, not checking whether my plans fit someone else's image, not being quietly trained to make myself smaller so another person could feel like the main character. I was just doing my thing, and honestly, it was great. 6 months after moving to Austin, I was doing better than I had been in years. More settled, more confident, more like myself. The job had turned out even better than expected. My territory was expanding, my numbers were solid, and Paul was already talking about a possible promotion to director level within the next year. Around month 4, I started dating casually again. Nothing serious at first, just getting back out there. Then I met Rebecca. Rebecca was a sales engineer for a different aviation company. We met at a conference in Dallas and ended up at the same dinner table with a group of people. We spent the whole meal talking to each other and basically ignoring everyone else. She was smart, direct, and had a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard constantly. Our first actual date was at this taco place she swore had the best al pastor in Texas. She was right. We talked for 3 hours, and it felt easy in a way my relationship with Katya never had. Rebecca knew my story, the abbreviated version at least. She did not push for every detail. She just said it sounded like I had handled it the right way, then changed the subject. With Rebecca, I could just exist. She liked me for who I actually was. If I came home exhausted and wanted to order pizza and watch something mindless, she was into it. If I wanted to spend a Saturday hiking instead of sitting at a trendy brunch spot, she grabbed her boots. If I had to travel for work, she did not treat it like a personal betrayal. Cody met her when he came down to visit. His verdict was immediate. She's a keeper. He said she was the first girlfriend of mine who actually seemed interested in me, rather than interested in having a boyfriend. Through the grapevine back in Kansas City, I kept hearing little pieces about Katya's life. She had stayed with her parents in Chicago for a while, then moved back to Kansas City. Her design career had stalled because the whole Dmitry situation had played out in front of her professional network. Victor and I stayed loosely in touch. He would text me sometimes. He would send news about the Chiefs or ask how the job was going. He never mentioned Katya directly, but the subtext was always there. 8 months after the breakup, my company sent me back to Kansas City for a week. It was a big client meeting and regulatory review, the kind of thing that required my specific expertise. I would be in town for 5 days. I was not worried about running into Katya. I knew she had moved back to Kansas City from Chicago, but Kansas City is still a big place. The odds of randomly crossing paths felt basically zero. The work went smoothly. 4 days of meetings, inspections, and documentation reviews. By Thursday evening, I was finished and had one free night before my flight home Friday afternoon. Cody insisted we meet up. He suggested a new place in the Crossroads district that had opened after I left. Supposedly, the food was great. I agreed. The restaurant was packed when I arrived. Cody had grabbed a table near the back and already ordered an appetizer. We spent the first hour properly catching up. His work, my work, Rebecca, his latest dating disasters, normal stuff. Then I saw her. Katia was across the restaurant with two women I did not recognize. She was dressed up, full makeup, the whole presentation. But something was off. That effortless confidence she used to have looked forced now. Like she was trying too hard, laughing a little too loudly, scanning the room to see who was noticing her. I watched her for maybe 30 seconds. She had lost weight. Her outfit looked cheaper than her usual style. The agency job, or whatever freelance work she was doing now, clearly was not paying like before. She had not noticed me yet. I debated whether to leave, but Cody had already turned to see what had caught my attention. When he spotted her, his face split into a huge grin. "Don't you dare leave," he said, keeping his voice low. "This is perfect. The universe is handing you a gift wrapped in a bow. Accept it gracefully." I told him I did not need any drama. "It's not about drama," he said. "She needs to see you happy and moved on. That will do more than any words ever could." So I stayed. I kept talking. I kept eating. I did not make a scene. About 20 minutes later, she noticed me. That fake happy expression on her face flickered for a second before she put it back on. She touched up her lipstick using her phone camera, then walked toward our table. Cody leaned back in his chair. Hey boy," he said quietly. "Don't give her anything." She stopped at our table. "Nate, I didn't know you were back in town." "Just in for work," I said. "Leaving tomorrow." I did not stand up. I did not offer her a seat. She stood there for a moment, clearly expecting more. When I did not give it to her, she pressed on. "How are you doing? Is Austin treating you well?" Then a pause. "Are you seeing anyone?" "Austin's good. Job's great. And yeah, I'm seeing someone. Going really well." The look on her face was priceless. It was that moment when she realized the backup plan she had been quietly counting on did not exist anymore. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Actually happy?" "Yep," I said. "I am." She swallowed. "I've been thinking about everything, Nate. I know now that what I asked for was wrong. I wish I could take it back." I nodded. "I appreciate you saying that." She waited. I think she expected more. An opening. A softening. Some sign that the old Nate was still there, ready to comfort her and make her feel less guilty. But that version of me was gone. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Katia." Then I turned back to Cody and picked up my fork. She stood there for a few seconds, not knowing what to do. I did not look up. Finally, she walked away without another word. Cody waited until she was back at her table before he spoke. "Dang," he said. "Did you see her face?" I shrugged. "Yeah, whatever." He raised his glass. "Here's to growing a pair at exactly the right time." Then he grinned. "I'm telling this story at every barbecue for the rest of my life." Knock yourself out. We finished our meal. The next day, I caught my flight home to Austin. Rebecca picked me up from the airport. She hugged me, asked about my trip, and we grabbed dinner at our usual spot. And honestly, I had never been happier.